Hello, everyone, and welcome back. It has been a new month, and we are back for another episode of the Ampliverse Book Club. I am joined once again by my very good friend and literary queen, Allie. Hi, Allie.
Hi, friend.
Hi. And today we are here to read our book club selection of the month. It is The Other Black Girl by Zakiya Dalila Harris. Here it is in all of its glory.
I love this cover.
I love
everything
this
about
cover.
it, especially the glitter and the texture on the hair pick.
And obviously love supporting local shows like Good Morning America. Thank you to them for their
Hey, at least we got out of Jenna Bush Hager's book club.
I know. We
moved to a different book club.
We finally diversified and got out of Jenna's book club.
Can I say, before we say anything about this book, I know that we always say at the beginning, like, we're going to do spoilers. Mm-hmm. But I especially think if you even think that you might read this, read it first.
Read it first.
Read it first.
I think out of all of the books that you may have been like, oh, they did another book, blah, 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 blah. Maybe I'll listen to it and see if I want to do this book. You have to read this book first before you even listen to this conversation.
Yeah.
Just because the third act is so good.
Honestly.
I all of a sudden I felt like I was in a different world. Yes. And it really truly shook me to the core that I was like, it just best kind of like fully like got me to like exactly like these are the stakes. And I was like, yep. Oh my God. It's just so creative. Okay, this is your warning. So save this video now. Go read the book. I mean, I read it in like 3-4 days, so you can do it too.
It's a quick it's not dense.
It's not dense,
but it very much is dense. I want to take back what I said. It's also not like you're not like reading like War and Peace. It's not like, you're reading really like, I don't know, heavy prose.
Yeah, I want to say if you are a fan of like, I mean, Get Out is kind of like a really accessible reference to kind of like tell people like what to relate to like for this book. I think if you really love Get Out and like love reading, you need to read this book because I think it'll give you that same satisfaction of just playing around with that dynamic, that tense kind of like, Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Yeah. Read the book.
Read it.
Okay, now we're going to talk about it. Allie, what was the first moment that you felt like there was a sense of like dread and like something is not right? Something's not going right here.
When Hazel had the manuscript from Vera and she went into Vera's office and gave Nella the like really icy look. That was when I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah, it was clearly like, did it work? Like it's her basically checking her work. Like, did it work? Did all of that make her like suspicious of me? Mine was like that one line at the end of the meeting where it like felt, where she was like trying to say like, okay, it was great meeting you. And Hazel just kept standing there and was like, she even like looked back and like Hazel was still there and was like, okay, girl. And she's like, okay, if you just, if anything ever comes up, just let me know or whatever.
Oh, sure.
And I was like, that's when I immediately, I mean, obviously like the jacket copy, just how the book is marketed, the literal title, it's like something's not right with the new girl at work.
Yes.
So, but kind of like showing it that way where I was like, oh, here we go. Like it was almost like a yay, like we get to see like how it unfurls. But I did not, even though that was the conceit, I did not expect this to turn into like a thriller, basically, that I was like, oh.
No, like I thought I knew, I couldn't decide when I first started if it had like spoiled anything that I knew. In reading about the book, I knew there was something off with Hazel. So like I knew that going in just from the article that I had read about, I just knew that going in. And so I was like going back and forth where I was like, does it matter that I know that going in? Is it affecting the way that I'm reading this book? And I don't think it did, because I think what ended up being wrong with Hazel was so shocking and so beyond what I could have conceived that I was like, it didn't spoil anything. I'm good. Like, it didn't ruin the reading experience at all for me.
Yeah, it was like really interesting because it did play around the entire, I would say like the first act of the book of like, you just think it's like race politics, quote unquote, in lack of a better term to call it. Like, it's like this one person is assimilating or like code switching, and this one, which let's talk about code switching. That moment when she said that, when she did the like, I was so mad. I was so mad. Like, she literally is just like truly just toying with you. She did the like, JK, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
I'm like, no, girl, you're not.
Yes, I know. Well, and
You're
the thing,
psycho.
I know. And the thing, because you really think that she's going to reveal something. You're really like, oh my God, this is when it's going to turn. And then she's like, code switching, girl. And it's like,
which like, that's what you kind of like just expect what the book is going to be about. That it's like, it's just her being like, I know what I'm doing. I know how to thrive in a white dominated industry and in an office, and you just need to catch up. And that's what the book is going to be about, which it is. But when you throw in the like sci-fi, not even sci-fi, but just like almost, I guess.
Yeah.
Like the sci-fi element that like there's an actual thing that is making Black women in the publishing industry more, what is the word?
Agreeable to white people.
Agreeable, yes. Like more like whitewashed,
palatable,
basically. Yes. That I was like, oh no, then it is fully like, and it all of a sudden it kind of transported me into like, the author is so creative in playing around with that genre, because it's like, all of a sudden, I don't know, like you buy into it, like the stakes are higher. Like, it's like, I don't know. It's just so creative that I was like, I'm never this creative. Like, this is insane.
Well, and I think just the fact that the, I don't want to say transition, but the change or whatever that it's manifested through hair products. I was like, this is the most brilliant writing. Like, I don't know how it could get any better. It was just such a phenomenal decision.
I wish I was there when she like either pitched this or like kind of wrote notes on a napkin at a cafe.
Yeah.
Thought
of it on a train.
Thought of it on a train. Because you could tell that she must have been like, I want to tackle, because it said like this is loosely based on like her experience in the publishing world too, of like, I want to tackle like what forces Black writers or just people working in like white dominated offices, what pushes them to like basically cave in so that they essentially have to be like, I'm giving up my own genuine self so that I could like actually like have a career in what I want to do. And she like is like, but I want to do it in a way where it centralizes what is the one thing about Blackness that feels like it's like the most like kind of like important cultural like touchstone of like being a Black woman, and it is hair. Like it is hair. Like it is something that no one else other than like a Black woman can fully understand, like what it means to maintain and like the culture and like the actual work that puts into it. And like by using that as the device to like be like, you have to submit this in order to become like a successful career woman. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. Well, I also think just something that is so politicized. And so, and to kind of be led into this, I think with Hazel, like to be led down this road of, you know, we're not trying to like whitewash our hair. Like we're treating it like it's natural, and you know, we're not going and relaxing it. We're not trying to fit in with like the quote unquote like acceptable office standards that white people have decided
like
upon,
forced,
and so to even just have it be like something that it's like, oh, it's great for like your natural hair, and
it's just so, yeah, like I said, it's so creative, it's so smart that you're just like, wow, I wouldn't even think about like delving into that. But it really shows, I feel like, her passion of like wanting to talk about this in this specific industry. And like, I can relate in like a corporate setting. Like, I've worked at a big company before. I work for like a mid-sized agency now. Like, I understand the corporate culture. But it must be so insane when you're in a place like an editing or a publishing field, because you are also judging what goes out in the world. And so
your
there's that added, yes, you're gatekeeping. You have that added pressure of like, if I don't speak out, then Chartrecia will be a person that people have to know who is, which is like, I cannot even. So like, the Chartreuse thing was already bad, right?
Yes.
And like, I think like, I'm a big movie fan. Like, Adam and I always talk about like, and we've discussed like certain characters in movies where it's just like, oh no, like they're tokenizing a character to represent literally everything. And it's like, they're not thinking about like how it's coming off, because they go into it with a good intention of like, look, we're showing multiple viewpoints, but it's like, but you're not, you have no authority to talk about that viewpoint and talk about like, how the opioid crisis has like affected like Black people when you are not Black, and creates like a clearly like stock character to represent it. But when they started talking about the book cover and how Nella, the main character, is like, I am seeing like essentially like a blackface depiction of Chartrecia on a book cover, and everyone is just loving it. And that took me back. Like, when I worked at Disney, there were a lot of times where I would like look at work and be like, there is a penis. You accidentally drew a penis. or like just like in colors, and it's like, this kind of looks offensive because you're picking like this drawing that you made is someone that has like big lips or whatever that is, and it's supposed to reference that they're like African or whatever. I'm like, this isn't a good look. Like, people in those fields sometimes just don't think about that because they have never been told like, you can't, the world's your oyster, you can write about anything, blah 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 blah. And it's 9 times out of 10 it's like a white male person doing that.
Yeah, I thought one of the most striking parts of that was when she was thinking about like, am I going to speak up in this meeting about it or not? And she said that like a BuzzFeed article flashed in her mind of like, where was the sensitivity read on this? And it was one of those things where it's like, absolutely, that's something that would happen. But it's such an interesting thing too, when you look at it from her point of view, that it's like, she's the only one in this office who is there representing this point of view and offering it. And so it's like, it's one of those things where you're like, it's unfair. I'm not articulating the point the way that I want to, but where you're like, it's unfair for, news outlets to publish like headlines like that when look at like, because you're essentially saying like the onus of racial sensitivity is on the one Black girl who's in the office.
And
how, how are we supposed to expect her to do a sensitivity read on every single book that comes out? And I just thought, and especially when she's like, what if I lose my job over it? And then, and then there's no voices in the office. Like, what's that going to do? And I just thought that it really articulated that struggle very well.
Yeah. And even in the whole, like, when she was debating, even before the cover, where it was just like this one very stock character that is, poorly representing, the whole debate of like with herself, like, should I speak out? Should I tell the author or not? And when she did, I think she didn't do it. Like, she did it the way that I think was appropriate. It didn't sound inappropriate to me. I don't think that for the listener, for the people watching it, she basically confronts the author in like a meeting that was like, there's just this one character that I felt like blah, 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 blah. was poorly representative of what you're trying to get, and I think could do a bad taste. And obviously the white author was like, are you saying I'm racist? I'm not racist, and like threw a huge fit, blah 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 blah. Her boss was mad at her, but like it was not like out of like she wasn't like saying that, like I don't know, I was fully in Nella's I wouldn't have punished Nella the way that they kind of punished her, not in action, but it was just fully like in how they behaved towards her at work. Like it was almost like she was like a plague basically, because it's like, oh, she's gonna, she's now the police for all minority characters, and like better watch out. I feel like if I was in that position, if I was that boss and that we did let this book go into publishing and then it makes it out there, I would be so worried that like people would think that, or like I would get in trouble because I let this book go. Or I let this book go all the way,
I also think it was good that she included that kind of age range in there, in that confrontation of someone who is, I was assuming maybe like late 40s, early 50s. It's not really specified, but I do think that there is a very generational difference of like someone taking feedback, and I think like all white people are racist. Sorry. It's just the way that society has made us, and we can do that's just the way it is. And I think that like people our age are more comfortable with being like it. Like if someone called me, if someone was like, "That's really racist what you just said," I mean, I would be upset, but I would be like, I don't think that you're just going to call me a racist for no reason. That's not something that's going to be said lightly. And so I did think that it was, because I think too, like in her conversations with Owen, who is her boyfriend and he's white, I think that contrast is very clear, where, she's bringing these things up, and like Colin, this author, is like, well, why would you call me a racist? And her boyfriend is, I think a lot more sensitive to.
Yeah. She fully was like, yeah, not everyone can be like my boyfriend who has like two moms and like
raised in like crunchy Colorado. And,
yes. Yeah, totally. I think like, and like in my old work, like at Disney, I had that, like that happened once where we did like say something like, I think you need to relook at like your designs here because I think you're not seeing something. And the designer was fully like, well, I'm not racist. I don't think that way. I'm like, we're not saying that. We're saying like, we're helping you. We're telling you that you just need to relook at we're not saying you're a bad person. That's why we're here, like to do that. And yeah, I think it is a generational thing, but also like I'm sure in that industry too, where it's like if you have basically like a James Patterson type, that's just like knocking out these books and blah, 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 and have never been told like no, which is weird to me because the editor is the person to tell you that. The editor is the person that's like, this is why this won't work, or like, you should do this again. So it's very weird that like that the whole company, Wagner, was very much like, it didn't feel like they ever said no to anything.
Yeah.
Which was very strange. Yeah. That's my alarm to drink water. So I will do that right now.
Oh, good.
If you had gotten a note that said, leave your place of work now, what would have been your first instinct to do?
I think that I would tell a select group of my coworkers. Okay. I would not tell my supervisor. I think, and I see, this is what's so interesting to me. And it's something that like, I always go back and forth in books when like the main character isn't telling people things. And so like, and specifically there are a couple things that I was like, why isn't she telling Owen? Like I was going back and forth on that, where I was like, why wouldn't you tell him about this? But I think
why isn't Harry Potter saying he's hearing voices?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, just fucking say it and get it over with. Whatever. It's like, but I think I think that it all felt very real to me, that she was like, she didn't want to go to her supervisor about it. And she wanted to kind of pass it off as this weird, like fluky thing. And I think it's also like very natural to kind of like look at all of your coworkers and be like, because you don't want to expect that from someone you work with. Like you don't want to expect that terrible thing that someone that you work with is doing something like that. I don't know. What would you do?
I wrote in all caps, go to HR, because I think maybe it's just me personally, but I was like way out of my pay grade. I cannot deal with this. I am so busy. I am just trying to work. I'm just trying. If I would be like, I'm too busy trying to read these manuscripts just so I can like have a small inch of like a taste of what it would be like potentially to edit a book. Like that's, and I understand that's all written there to like put everything against her so that way she does feel unable to act on anything, because it's like anything I do, I lose all of the work, all of the dominoes that I've already set up just so I could get a little bit ahead in the company, which really sucks. Like I truly understand that. But I think like if I would be just such an emotional person that if I get that, I fully would like just fully like get so emotional that I'm like, I need someone that can think about this objectively and not me, who will literally just like confront everyone that I come across at work. So I think I would go to HR because I would just be like, I need an objective person. But I would check, obviously, like if I was at Wagner, it's like, what is our DEI commitment? Like, what are our values right now? Because if I go to HR and they say like, this is not a big, you know what I mean? Like, I like, will this company actually like have my back if I do go up to them? Which I hate that that's something that people have to like debate. Like, will these people who I spend like a third of my life in have my back?
Yeah.
It's,
I did really like how she framed it, where when you're reading it, you think that the notes are the sinister thing.
I know.
Like you think that's the ultimate evil. And they're not.
It was truly like, I really love that twist, or like that flip of like, these notes were there to actually warn me. These notes were actually helpful. And I wanted to ask, I know you had mentioned before we started recording to talk about like the timeline, and just like when we read What's Mine and Yours, like there's a lot of moving around of like timeline and characters. The same happens here. Embarrassingly took me half of the book that was like, oh, I just assumed they were like numbers, because Nella's chapters are numbered, but not Nella's chapters are labeled by the person.
And they're in first person.
And they're in first person.
Yeah.
So it's like,
so when it started, I have a couple things to say. When it started and
I was just dumb.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, oh my God, because I feel like it's something, because even when we read Good Company, there was a lot of jumping in and out of, and I was like, are we just like not attentive readers that we're having a hard time keeping up with this? Like what? I got kind of upset about it, because I was like, I thought that I was a pretty savvy reader, and that, but I really think that this is a book that is made to be reread, because
okay.
Yeah, because I even to the end of the book, I was having to like go back and be like, okay, here we are in the timeline. But then when I got to the end, I was like, it was really kind of brilliant the way that she had it. So especially with Shawnee's chapters, where it was like hers started like a month after the main events of the book were happening, and then you slowly worked your way up, and like Kendra was kind of sprinkled in here and there. I was like, it's really great, because it was such a slow burn that it didn't. I think that if she had a clearer timeline, it would have given away too much too soon. Yeah. And I think that I think it ended up playing out really well. But yeah, I did. I'm so confused.
I will say, I caught up with that faster in this book than Good Company. Because I think Good Company was just a little bit like, it was just too relaxed. I needed a format.
Yeah, and it wasn't as clear. Like this book at least gave you like dates. And like Good Company, you would be like halfway through the chapter and you're like, oh, we're in like 1996 now.
Oh, it's like, oh, I'm in the past.
What?
What? So like picking up the really small details here was really enjoyable because I felt like I was like just watching it unfold, and like I don't know, I like got tingles because it's like, oh, like I just know how awkward those situations are in the office, that like slowly building those kind of like awkward moments, like I didn't realize that it would pay off so well when it was like, wow, Nella's instincts were right the entire time.
Right.
And I really thought we were gonna be like, she needs to calm down, like she needs to like, I think it's gonna be one of those things where she spirals out into her own obsession and she ends up being like the villain.
Like American Psycho.
Yes, and I'm so glad that wasn't the case. It was so fulfilling to be like, wow, all of her hunches were correct.
Yeah. The reason why I was like, I want, like, this is a book to be reread is because when she was putting it all together and she was realizing, like, was Vera in on this? Richard was in on this because, and then I was like looking back on some of the things that she was being asked to do for her job. And I was like, were these like tests to see how well it was going?
Yeah.
Like, was she being put up to these things so they could like gauge how well
like her progress is going?
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh. The one thing that I was going to say that I felt like never cleared up for me, and maybe it wasn't supposed to mean anything at all, was she made the observation about Maisie, who was technically Hazel's supervisor, like coming in and being really flustered and having a ton of bags and then like coming back from vacation early. I was like, was it just like a weird thing that Nella was like observing a lot of weird things happening and she just included that in the weird things and it had nothing else to do with that? Was like the one thing that I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, that's what I was going to ask. Like, in actually plotting out like who was involved, like, I could see them being like, well, we'll hire her under Maisie. So that's her like, that because they know that Maisie is like super flighty and her life's a mess or whatever. So like she probably doesn't even use her assistant that much or whatever. So it's a good kind of like excuse for Hazel to be so involved in literally everything. But I did want to ask, like, so who ended up being super involved? Like who was involved in all of this? It's Shawnee. No, not Shawnee. Diana from the top.
From the talk?
The top.
Oh, from the top. Yes. I was like, she wasn't on the talk.
She wasn't on the talk. Okay. So in kind of plotting out like who was involved in this whole thing, Diana is at the top with her friend Imani. They're developing this like hair serum, whatever. And she was actively using like Rick. Like Rick also knew it, right? Like he was aware, or was she just kind of like, I know that Rick would want to be involved, and so it would be an easy way to get one of my girls in there.
I got the sense that like, so Imani was the one who had come up with the idea and she told Diana about it. And Diana was in the middle of this like situation with Kendra because Kendra had said, if you're white, you ain't right by me.
If you ain't right, you ain't right. Which,
good for you, Kendra.
I was like, yeah, absolutely. And that's
don't blame you.
That's like obvious. I'm glad that they did that as like, this was in the 80s. So yes, like people would be blackballed for that like back then. But I am glad like, okay, at least now that like we have the Issa Raes and the Ava DuVernays of the world where it's like, you don't want to work with white people? You don't have to. Like we don't put you in black creators only. Oh, thank God.
So to me, it was like she heard of this thing and she's like, well, Kendra's my friend, but we can't keep her around as she is. So I'm going to suggest to Richard that we do this to try to keep her around. And then Richard, I guess, somewhere along the way, they were like, well, what if, I think she probably was using Richard for like his connections to women and like powerful places.
Yeah. So it didn't seem like he was an active participant. Like he didn't know that all of this was happening, but he was kind of like the way for Diana to know, like, how can we the connections.
Oh, I think he knew what they were doing.
Oh, you think he did? Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
I
Because he was
wasn't
the one
clear.
who
I
was
wasn't
taking the
clear.
notes.
Yeah.
I definitely
Wait.
thought that
He was taking the notes?
Yeah.
The one that
When
he
she-
saw in
when she
was
found
in her
the notes
bedroom?
in Hazel, yeah, those were Richard's. Because it was his handwriting. No.
Maybe we
Yeah.
are too dumb for this book.
I think, you know what? I think that I have found, especially with my Harry Potter podcast, Harry Potter and the Anxious Millennials, I think that just as human beings that we want to read as quickly as possible and that we just skip details.
Yeah.
So I think I've just learned to like take a beat, reread a sentence if you need to.
Yeah, I have definitely done that, especially in this book, which is, I'm glad that it was like written in a way that's like, you'll want to reread what I just wrote because you missed something.
Mm-hmm. Can we talk about Malika?
I mean, icon. I probably feel okay. In talking about Malika and Owen too, like just everyone in Nella's life, assuming at the end, I'm filling in the gaps. I'm assuming she left her life.
Nella did?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I will say, I think that the white person optimist in me wanted to believe that Nella had tricked Hazel.
I know.
And then was going to this new publishing house and was going to work with Shawnee on. But then when she said that sentence of like, tell me how it really is here, I was like, God damn it. And so that was one of the biggest, I think, question marks that was left at the end of the book. That was like, what did Malika do about all of this? And like,
I know that's what I was saying. Like, I feel bad for Malika because she was there, she saw it, and I think she could have the drive to be like, okay, look what you just did to my best friend.
Yeah,
this is insane.
Yeah, and then did Nella try to turn her?
I almost feel like the only possible way that this would have happened is if she just like disappeared and like just left.
Yeah. The other big question mark for me, and I'm curious to know, do you think that Hazel's boyfriend was real?
No, I don't think any of it was real.
Okay. Because there was that. So
I don't think Cafe Curls is real.
Curl Central?
Curl Central, whatever.
Do you think Miss Aisha B is real? The like hair consultant? Because when she was in the room and she was saying like, it looks like no one was really like living there. And then like, she talked about him so much, but then he was never actually introduced. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't know that I think he's real.
So the Young Black,
and the Lit
group. Yes. Young Black and Lit. Here's this now, like connecting all the dots. Like that's basically like a farming.
Yes.
Program. So those girls will grow up to become.
She's grooming them.
It's
I know. It's so upsetting. The other thing that I wanted to say about Hazel that I thought was a really interesting dynamic that was introduced pretty early on was this kind of like identity issue that Nella had where she was like, I grew up in like suburban white ass Connecticut and like, a lot of my friends were white and a lot of my boyfriends were white and
a lot of Oreo like.
Yeah. And like this feeling that she got, especially where Hazel would make her feel like, oh, am I not black enough? Like when they were having a conversation and she was like, you don't know how to do twists and, things like that. And like, she was like, oh, she's from Harlem. I wish, and I thought that was another really interesting thing to add to the dynamic too, was this idea of like, how can Hazel seem so like engaged with her identity and with her culture, but then also be sitting back and like allowing these white people to do all of this racist ass bullshit?
I think, yeah, that's really what the book kind of like really wants to hit at, right? Like there is that like, I don't think performative is the right word, but something like there is an idea of like you have to kind of like be like, I am my identity. I am 100% my identity, blah, 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 blah. But only doing it in a way where it's like the fabulous stuff, the face value things. Because I mean, at the heart of it, this thing that you put on your hair, she was saying like it ultimately numbs your part of your brain so you don't feel guilt when you see like all of these injustices and microaggressions happen at work. So that way you're just like, yep, that's fine. Like just takes that away so you can just basically enjoy the good parts about you living your cultural identity without kind of living with the like fact that it is still like a white supremacist system and everything is still like, you know, like built in systematically like that. And that's almost why I love the inclusion of the like Jesse Watson stuff on YouTube, because I think that captures the like performative, like, look, I'm an activist. I love being black, blah, 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 blah. Jesse Watson, very Sean King energy. And then you see them and they're just a hollow shell that's just like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like I just say what I gotta
Well,
say.
did you not think that he had been changed too?
I think like it's either like he was changed or he was always just a puppet. That's kind of how I read it. But I definitely read it both ways because I also know that like he had like his like there was like controversies that very Sean King, you know, like there are controversies that appeared that like made him like get out of the limelight and then maybe like
I thought that he got out of the limelight because he had been changed. That was how I interpreted it.
To try and downplay that like black activism type situation, like to be like, no, this is more harm than good.
Yeah. I have to tell you that I thought that the funniest moment in the book was when I don't know if funny is the right word, but was when he came in for the meeting and Nella left because she was like, what the fuck is going on here? And she just paused for to hear one more snippet. And they were like, what's your favorite book? And he said Infinite Jest. And they were all like, what? Like,
yes, queen. I know.
I thought that shit was so funny.
Yeah, I just love that she was fully like, oh, you are not like never meet your heroes, Allie.
Yeah,
like fully she was like, you have just drank also the go-go juice or whatever.
The Crystal Light.
The Kool-Aid, yeah. Oh my God. It is like, what did you like? I didn't expect the whole resistance portion of it. And it's sad because like ultimately it doesn't work out, but like I don't know, like it is kind of like a nice kind of, I feel like with the Get Outs and you know those kind of like stories, it always feels so insular that it's just one person having to experience this, and that makes it the worst because there's no one else you could kind of like share and relate and experience with. It's like, you know, just like how most victims like feel when they are traumatized by like some sort of like terrorism that's done to them. Like you never truly feel like this has happened to someone else before. So I did like that there was a feeling of like, look, we are seeing the patterns, we're connecting the dots, we can actually stop this. So I did like that, but I mean, I'm sad that they didn't get Nella and Shani left. So
yeah,
because Shani ultimately just wanted to like just forget it, right, and just start anew
and reveal it though too.
That's true. She was like, this is going on.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm partly at a loss because this was so good.
It was so good. It was just so well conceived, well thought out. And I don't want to be that person of like, oh, I can't wait to see the movie. But I can't wait to see the movie.
Well, because they've already like sold she's already, I think, sold the rights.
Yeah,
So.
a lot of yeah, it's crazy. Like, I guess I also didn't realize how quickly that can happen. Like, once a book kind of like takes off, you can easily just sell the rights, and like, it doesn't necessarily mean the movie's going to be made right away. There's already casting, but it's just like, we've secured it. This could potentially be a movie someday, because I think, and what I would love, I mean, I feel like it's going to be like they might cast some familiar faces, but I would love to see like new talent to do this movie.
Although I have to tell you, know who I would love to cast as Nella? Or Kiki Palmer.
Kiki probably would make a great Malika.
I was going to say, maybe, when I was saying that, I was like, maybe that she would be better cast as Malika. But I want Kiki Palmer involved in this project. Yes. So Kiki Palmer's people, I can't do anything. I don't have any connections, but I hope that you work really hard and really campaign for her to have a role in this project.
Yeah. I almost want them to like, almost kind of like how they discovered Daniel Kaluuya in Get Out. Like, I want them to kind of discover someone new.
For a second, I thought you said Dave Coulier, and I was like, RJ.
RJ, he was not in that movie. That was Bradley Whitford.
Okay, sorry. Daniel Kaluuya.
No, yeah,
okay.
I hope they kind of like discover someone new, because I think this is such a good role for someone.
Yes.
Like, both Nella and
Hazel. Yeah, obviously. Absolutely.
This was giving me like Killing Eve vibes. Like, I was like, I kind of want Sandra Oh to do this, but obviously not, because that's wrong.
Right. Yeah.
But like that same vibe of like, ugh. And I think what would be really kind of nuanced about it is that like, if this was put in the hands of like an Issa Rae or an Ava, like, I think they could do a really great job.
Michaela Cohen. Have you watched I May Destroy You?
I have not watched I May Destroy You.
RJ, it is fucking intense.
I know.
It's a whole goddamn lot, but it's essential. So
yeah. I was kind of thinking like she would probably she could probably be a fun Hazel, because I think she can play the intense and the like character stuff really well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. So what is your, like, we've mentioned hot moments in other books before. Was there a hot moment for you in this?
You know, that's what I've been thinking since I finished it. I was like, I don't know if we have a hot moment that we can talk about.
I kind of like said like maybe when Hazel was putting the stuff on Nella's hair.
Yeah.
Obviously she was writing it in a way that it's like, we want the reader to know that like it's happening. The physical act of her touching her hair and putting stuff in the hair is happening right now. I would probably say that. I mean, like Richard and Diana, I guess. I don't know. That was kind of gross more than hot.
I'm not into that.
Yeah. I'm sad we didn't get any sexy farmers in this book.
No, the book was light on sexy farmers. And honestly, with Kendra living out in upstate New York, there could have been a sexy farmer.
There could have been easily a sexy farmer. Owen could have had a micro garden in his. He could have. He
could have had a garden collective. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
They lived in Brooklyn.
Missed up. I mean, I feel like Manny was probably super hot, but he didn't exist, so we'll never know.
He didn't. Yeah, we'll never know.
The way he was described was very much like, oh, he is. I could tell this man is.
How about when Juanita was really drunk and possibly coked out?
Oh my God!
Do you think she had something going on with the young guy who wanted to be an author that was talking to Nella? Do you think they had something going?
The last sophomore.
I thought he was in college.
No,
did I read it wrong?
I don't know.
I take it back. I'm sorry.
If you to kind of close the discussion, what was kind of like your biggest takeaway from the book? Other than that, it was brilliant.
Other than that, it was what?
Brilliant.
Oh. I hate white people. Honestly, to be 100% like transparent about it, I was like, I need to be doing more in the workplace to be supportive of my coworkers of color and not, just sit on the sidelines. And yeah.
We have at my job right now, we have a POC, like employee resource group, and we definitely kind of act as like a support group most of the time, because there are just so many small instances that obviously no one means to do, but because of either how it comes across or like even like, and Anella talks about it, even in the first way that when Hazel, like in that open meeting, was like, I actually love Chartrecia. It's a really honest look. Like by doing that act, it ultimately magnifies into what Nella was feeling, because she knows some people in this office know how that worked out. And so it's just like kind of like making people think about her in a different way instantly in one kind of like offhand comment that I feel like happens all the time at workplaces, where you don't even mean that. You don't even mean that like I'm commenting on like the one POC or like a POC's person, but it's like they may have made that comment or I may be commenting on something that I don't know the full story on, and by me commenting on it made the one POC person kind of like feel bad, or in the optics like people may have had a different opinion of them. So like I think like that's definitely a big thing, and like just really like being more mindful of that and not being afraid to speak out. And I think I think that there are more people now that are more empowered to like say something. I think especially after the summer that we had last year, and all the like activism that's come out. Unfortunately, like it had to take murders to take place for a lot of companies to kind of even address these things. So I hope that people that read this book, I think will definitely have the same takeaway of like, I need to do better at work.
Yeah.
Brilliant work.
Thank you, Zakiya.
Thank you, Zakiya. Thank you, NPR. Thank you, NYT. Thank you, everyone.
Also, fun fact, her sister is a co-host, a contributor to the Pop Culture Happy Hour on NPR.
Aisha Harris?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, I had no idea. Adam, Aisha Harris's sister wrote this book.
Aisha Harris is Pop Culture.
From Pop Culture Happy Hour. We love Pop Culture Happy Hour. We love Aisha. We love.
There
oh
you
my
go.
God, this is
Aisha.
amazing. Oh my God, it's amazing. Wow. My favorite book of the year.
What a great moment for us.
Yes. Okay. I told Allie the next month's book has to be a book that I have already purchased, because I have a growing stack of books that I have not read yet. But, since we started the book club, I was fully just like, let's just buy more books, blah, blah, blah. So
you can always buy more books.
That's true. So, Allie, in my hands, I have 3 books.
Yes. This is my favorite thing you've ever done.
In my hand, I have 3 books. In my hand, I have 3 books, and one of these books will be America's Next Top Ampliverse Book Club selection.
Okay.
So all you need to do.
The other 2 must return to the house.
The other 2
pack their belongings and go back to the bookshelf. Oh my God. Oh, I don't even get to see them. I just have to pick a number.
You pick a number.
3.
And that number will be number 3?
Number 3.
Okay.
Did I pick a good number?
You have selected.
Do you want me to pick a different number?
No, you're good. The international bestseller, The Phone Booth at the Edge of the World by Laura Imai Messina.
What's it about?
Okay, let me read you the jacket copy. We'll play this at the end of the episode so people are like, ooh, I gotta read this one for the next one. Okay. When Yui loses her mother and daughter in the tsunami, she wonders how she will ever carry on and begins to mark time in relation to that terrible day in 2011. Yet, in the face of this unthinkable loss, her life must somehow continue. One day at work, as the host of a call-in radio program, Yui hears a story about a man on Whale Mountain, one of the places worst hit by the tsunami, who has an old telephone booth in his garden with a disconnected phone inside. As news of the phone booth and its wind phone spreads, people start coming from miles around to speak to loved ones, finding comfort in sharing the details of their daily lives with those they've lost. But when Yui, numb with grief, makes her own pilgrimage, she can't bring herself to pick up the receiver. Then she meets Takeshi, a widower whose own daughter has stopped talking in the wake of her mother's death. Inspired by true events, this best-selling novel is a moving, unforgettable story about the depths of grief, the lightness of love, and the human longing to keep the people who are no longer with us close to our hearts.
Okay.
Ooh. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening to another episode of the Ampliverse Book Club. You can follow us on social media at the Ampliverse on Twitter and Instagram. Our Discord server is also linked to the episode where you can join in on the conversation outside of the show and with other Ampliverse fans. Finally, if you love the show and the others we do here, feel obliged to drop a tip or two on the Ko-fi link, which helps support keeping the lights on in our universe. Allie, thank you so much for joining me on another amazing episode of the book club. Thanks everyone for watching this episode, and we will see you next month. Goodbye.
Bye.
Discovering voices, building worlds. The Ampliverse.